She had lost her family, her friends, and every place she once called home. With nothing left but a broken heart and one small meal, she chose to share it with a silent beggar in an unfinished building, unaware that this single act of kindness was being watched by a man whose secret would soon change her life forever. The night she arrived at the unfinished building, the city felt colder than it ever had before. Not because the wind was sharp or the sky was dark, but because for the first time in her life, she truly had nowhere to go. Maya stood at the edge of the construction site, clutching a small cloth bag that held everything she owned now. Her hands trembled, not just from fear, but from the weight of betrayal that still echoed in her chest. Just weeks ago, she had believed she was safe. She trusted the people who smiled at her every day, who promised support, loyalty, and love. But when trouble came, those same people turned their backs on her. Her closest friend blamed her for a mistake she didn't make. Her relatives said she was a burden. Even the man she once planned a future with chose comfort over standing by her side. One by one, doors closed until the street became her only option. She walked deeper into the construction site, her footsteps crunching softly against gravel and broken concrete. Half-built walls stood like skeletons, unfinished dreams frozen in time. The smell of dust filled the air. Somewhere above, a loose metal sheet clanged gently in the wind. It was scary, yes, but it was also quiet. And right now, quiet felt safer than rejection. That's when she noticed him. He sat near a broken pillar, wrapped in an old, faded shawl. His beard was untrimmed, his clothes worn and patched, his eyes lowered as if the world had trained him not to look up anymore. A small tin bowl rested beside him, empty. He didn't ask for money. He didn't even glance at her. He just sat there, silent, like a shadow that belonged to the building itself. Maya hesitated. Every warning she had ever heard ran through her mind. But something about him felt harmless. Maybe it was the way he leaned slightly away, giving her space. Or maybe it was the loneliness she recognized so clearly in his stillness. "I won't bother you," she said softly, mostly to reassure herself. He didn't respond. She chose a corner a few steps away and sat down, pulling her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders. Her stomach growled painfully. From her bag, she took out the last thing she had, a small piece of flatbread and half a boiled egg wrapped in paper. It was all she had managed to buy with her remaining coins. She stared at the food for a long moment. Then she glanced at the beggar's empty bowl. Her heart sank. She tried to ignore it at first. Survival demanded selfishness. But the silence between them felt heavy. Slowly, she broke the bread in half, wrapped part of it with the egg, and stood up. She walked over and placed it gently beside him. "It's not much," she whispered, "but please eat." For the first time, he looked up. His eyes were dark, calm, and strangely deep. For a second, Maya felt like he could see straight through her, past her torn clothes, past her exhaustion, into her soul. He didn't rush for the food. He simply nodded, slowly, respectfully. "Thank you," he said quietly. His voice was steady, educated, nothing like she expected. She returned to her spot, her heart pounding. Hunger gnawed at her, but something warmer spread through her chest. For the first time in days, she felt human again. That night, as she lay on the cold concrete, she didn't notice the man watching quietly from his place. She didn't see how he stayed awake long after she slept, listening to every sound, alert to every movement around her. She didn't know that behind the dirt and silence was a man who had chosen this life for a reason, and that her small act of kindness had already set something irreversible in motion. Morning crept into the unfinished building slowly, like it was unsure whether it was welcome there. Pale sunlight slipped through the gaps between concrete pillars and broken walls, landing softly on Maya's face. She stirred, her body stiff from sleeping on the cold floor. For a few seconds, she forgot everything. Then the ache in her back, the emptiness in her stomach, and the harsh smell of dust pulled her back to reality. She sat up and instinctively looked around. The beggar was still there. He sat exactly where he had been the night before, near the pillar, his back straight despite the hard ground. In his hands was the food she had given him. He was eating slowly, carefully, breaking each bite as if respecting it. Not a single crumb fell to the floor. For some reason, that small detail tightened Maya's chest. "Good morning," she said quietly, unsure if he wanted conversation. He looked up, meeting her eyes. "Good morning," he replied. "You made it through the night." She gave a weak smile. "I didn't have much choice." He nodded, as if he understood that feeling far too well. Maya stood up, brushing dust from her clothes. Her stomach growled loudly this time, and she felt heat rush to her face. She turned away, embarrassed, pretending to fix her bag. "You should eat," the beggar said. She laughed bitterly. "There's nothing left." He hesitated, then gently pushed a small piece of bread toward her. "Then share mine." Her eyes widened. "No, that was yours. I gave it to you. And now I'm giving it back," he said calmly. "Food tastes better when it's shared." She wanted to refuse. Pride told her she should. But hunger is louder than pride. Slowly, she sat down across from him, and they shared the small meal in silence. That was the first time in days Maya felt something close to peace. As the morning wore on, the city woke up around them. The sounds of horns, footsteps, and shouting echoed from outside the building. People passed by, some glancing in with disgust, others with curiosity. A group of teenage boys slowed down, whispering and laughing. "Look at them," one of the boys sneered. "Future of the country, huh?" Another threw a small stone inside. It bounced near Maya's feet. She flinched. The beggar didn't react. He didn't even look at them. He simply closed his eyes, as if their words didn't exist. Maya's hands clenched into fists. "How can you stay so calm?" she whispered. "They're loud because they're empty," he replied quietly. "If you listen closely, you'll hear fear behind their laughter." She looked at him, surprised. "You don't sound like someone who's been on the streets his whole life." He smiled faintly, but didn't answer. Later that day, Maya gathered her courage and went out to look for work. She walked from shop to shop, offering to clean, organize, do anything. Some people ignored her. Others looked her up and down and shook their heads before she even finished speaking. By the time she returned, the sun was already setting, and her feet ached with every step. "Nothing?" the beggar asked gently. She dropped her bag and sat down hard. "Nothing." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. It's like once people see you fall, they don't want to help you stand again. He studied her face carefully. "You're stronger than you think." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "Everyone who trusted me left. Everyone I trusted betrayed me. Strength doesn't change that." "Strength isn't about keeping people," he said. "It's about not becoming cruel after they leave." His words hit her deeper than she expected. That night, the air felt heavier. Clouds covered the moon, and the building seemed darker than before. Maya curled up on her side, exhausted. Sleep came quickly, but it was restless. Sometime in the night, raised voices echoed nearby. Maya stirred, fear tightening her chest. She didn't open her eyes, hoping the sounds would go away. Footsteps approached the building, uneven and careless. Drunk laughter followed. "Anyone in there?" a voice shouted. Maya's breath caught. Before she could react, the beggar stood up. His movement was quiet, controlled. The way he stepped forward was nothing like the tired man she had seen all day. His shoulders straightened. His presence filled the space. "Move along," he said firmly. The men paused. "Who are you?" one of them scoffed. "Someone who doesn't want trouble," he replied. "And someone who can cause it if needed." There was something in his voice, calm, confident, unafraid, that made the men hesitate. They exchanged looks, muttered curses, and slowly backed away. Maya lay frozen until their footsteps faded. Only then did she sit up, her heart racing. I thought they were going to." "They weren't," he said gently, sitting back down. "You're safe." She stared at him. "You didn't look afraid at all." "I was aware," he corrected. "There's a difference." That night, Maya watched him quietly as he stayed awake long after she lay down again. He listened to every sound, every movement, like a guard on duty. She didn't know why he did it. She didn't know that while the world saw a worthless beggar, this man had trained himself to observe, protect, and endure. And she didn't know that with every passing moment, he was learning something far more valuable than money, what real humanity looked like when no one was watching. As Maya finally drifted back to sleep, she felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Not safety, not comfort, but trust. The days that followed settled into a strange, fragile routine. It wasn't comfort, and it certainly wasn't stability, but it was something Maya hadn't felt in a long time: continuity. Each morning, she woke up in the unfinished building with the same cracked walls, the same smell of dust, and the same quiet presence across from her. And somehow, that consistency began to feel like a lifeline. Maya started leaving early every day to look for work. She washed her face at a public tap, smoothed her hair as best she could, and practiced a hopeful smile in the reflection of a dark shop window. She told herself that today would be different. Today, someone would say yes. Most days, they didn't. She cleaned floors for a few coins once. Another day, she helped an old woman carry groceries and was rewarded with a piece of fruit and a blessing whispered under tired breath. Sometimes, she returned with nothing at all, her shoulders slumped, her steps slower than the morning. Every evening, the beggar was there when she returned. He never asked how much she earned. He never made her feel like she had failed. Sometimes he simply nodded, making space beside him. Other times, he offered a few quiet words that settled her racing thoughts. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the unfinished walls in shades of orange and gold, Maya finally asked the question that had been sitting in her chest for days. "What's your name?" He looked at her, surprised, as if the question itself had caught him off guard. After a brief pause, he said, "Arjun." "It suits you," she said. "I'm Maya." "I know," he replied gently. She blinked. "You do. You told me in your sleep," he said with a small smile. "You talk when you dream." Her cheeks warmed, but she found herself smiling back. That night, for the first time, they talked about more than survival. Maya told him about her past, not every detail, but enough to ease the weight inside her. She spoke about the job she lost after being blamed for someone else's mistake, about the friend who promised to stand by her, then disappeared the moment things got difficult, about her engagement that ended not with a fight, but with silence. He said he couldn't be with someone who was struggling, she said quietly. He said love shouldn't be this hard. Arjun listened without interrupting, his eyes steady, his expression unreadable. "And what do you think?" he asked when she finished. "I think love is supposed to stay," she replied. "Especially when things fall apart." He nodded slowly. "I agree." She hesitated, then asked, "What about you? How did you end up here?" For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. I chose to be here, he finally said. She frowned. No one chooses this. Some do, he replied calmly, when they're looking for something the world hides very well. And what are you looking for? She asked. He looked away, his gaze drifting toward the darkening sky. Truth. The word lingered between them. Over the next few days, Maya began to notice things that didn't quite add up. Arjun's posture was too disciplined for someone broken by the streets. His speech was careful, educated. He never begged when she was around, and when others insulted him, he didn't shrink, he observed. One afternoon, a man walking by deliberately kicked Arjun's bowl, scattering a few coins someone had tossed earlier. Maya rushed forward, anger flashing in her eyes. Why would you do that? She shouted. The man laughed. Because I can. Before Maya could say more, Arjun gently touched her arm. Let it go. She turned to him, frustrated. Why do you let them treat you like this? He met her gaze. Because how they treat me doesn't define who I am. That answer stayed with her long after the man walked away. That night, rain poured through the open structure of the building. Water dripped from the ceiling, forming small puddles around them. Maya shivered, pulling her shawl tighter. Without a word, Arjun adjusted his position so the wind hit him first. He placed his old shawl near her, careful not to touch her without permission. You'll get cold, she protested. I'm used to it, he replied. She stared at him in disbelief. You always do that. You always put yourself last. A faint smile touched his lips. Someone once told me that the measure of a person is what they do when no one is watching. She didn't know it then, but those words came from a life far removed from poverty, from boardrooms, power, and privilege. A life he had stepped away from on purpose. Late that night, Maya woke from a nightmare, her breath uneven, her hands shaking. Before she could stop herself, she whispered his name. I'm here, Arjun said immediately. She sat up, tears streaming down her face. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared this is all my life will ever be. He looked at her with a softness she hadn't seen before. This is not the end of your story, he said. It's only the chapter where you learn who you are. She held on to those words like a promise. As Maya drifted back to sleep, she didn't notice Arjun's gaze lingering on her, thoughtful, protective, conflicted. Every day he spent there was supposed to test others. But slowly, he realized something unsettling. This test was changing him too. The change didn't arrive loudly. It didn't crash into Maya's life with thunder or warning. It crept in quietly, disguised as an ordinary evening, the kind she had grown used to inside the unfinished building. The sky that day was unusually clear, painted in soft shades of blue and gray. Maya returned late, her steps slow, her energy drained. She had managed to earn a little money cleaning dishes at a roadside cafe, but the owner had paid her less than promised.
She didn't argue.
She never did anymore. Arguing cost energy she couldn't afford. When she reached the building, Arjun was standing near the entrance. Standing. That alone felt strange. He wasn't sitting by the pillar, like always. He was upright, hands behind his back, his gaze fixed on the road outside. There was a tension in his posture she hadn't seen before, like someone waiting for something they couldn't stop. Are you okay? She asked. He turned toward her.
Yes.
I just felt like standing today. She nodded, though something in her chest tightened. They ate quietly that night, sharing a simple meal of rice and lentils Maya had managed to buy. The air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Maya tried to shake off the unease, telling herself she was just tired. Then they heard it, the low hum of engines. Maya frowned and looked toward the road. Headlights appeared, then another, then another. Black cars, clean, expensive, completely out of place in this part of the city, slowed down and stopped near the construction site. Her heart began to race. Arjun closed his eyes for a brief moment, like someone bracing for impact. "Arjun," she whispered. The car doors opened. Men stepped out, dressed in sharp suits, their shoes polished, their expressions tense. They scanned the area urgently, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. Maya stood up abruptly. "We need to go."
Now.
She grabbed her bag, panic flooding her veins. Every bad memory rushed back. Authority, power, people who looked down on those with nothing. She didn't want to be seen. She didn't want trouble. Arjun didn't move. "Arjun," she hissed. "Please." One of the men spotted him and froze. His eyes widened. "Sir," the man said, his voice breaking with relief. He rushed forward, stopping a few steps away. "We've been looking everywhere for you." The word hit Maya like a slap. "Sir?" Her world tilted. The men stood straighter now, respect written clearly on their faces. Another step forward, his tone urgent. "Your family is worried. The board is demanding answers. The media—" "Enough," Arjun said quietly. The men fell silent immediately. Maya stared at him, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She looked from his calm face to the suited men, to the cars, and back again. "What is this?" she whispered. Arjun exhaled slowly. Then he reached up and removed the old shawl from his shoulders. Without it, he looked different. Taller.
Sharper.
Like someone stepping back into himself after a long absence. "I never meant for you to find out like this," he said. Her hands trembled. "Find out what?" He met her eyes. "That I'm not who you think I am." Anger rushed in, fast and hot. "So, what, this was a game to you?" she snapped. "Pretending to be poor? Watching people suffer?" "No," he said firmly. "Never that." "Then explain," she demanded, tears burning her eyes. "Explain why a beggar has men calling him sir and cars worth more than my entire life." The men shifted uncomfortably. One of them looked at Arjun, waiting for permission to speak. "Leave us," Arjun said. They hesitated. "Sir."
Now.
Reluctantly, they stepped back, standing near the cars, pretending not to listen. Arjun turned back to Maya. "I am a businessman. My name is Arjun Malhotra. I run a group of companies my father built. On paper, I'm a billionaire." Her breath caught. The word felt unreal. Billionaire. It didn't belong in this broken building, next to cracked concrete and hunger. "Then why?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Why live like this?" "Because I wanted the truth," he replied. "I grew up surrounded by people who smiled because they were paid to, who praised me because of my name. I didn't know who I was without my wealth." "So you came here," she said bitterly, "to test people?" "I came here to disappear," he said, "and to see who remained kind when there was nothing to gain." Her chest tightened painfully. "And I was just part of your experiment." "No," he said quickly. "You were never part of the test." She laughed hollowly. "Then what was I?" "You were the answer," he said softly. The words hung in the air, fragile and dangerous. "You shared your last meal with someone you thought had nothing," he continued. "You stayed when it was hard. When people insulted us, when there was danger, when you had every reason to walk away. You didn't do it for reward. You didn't even expect gratitude." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You lied to me." "Yes," he admitted. "And I'm sorry. Truly." She shook her head, stepping back. "All my life, people with power have decided who I am, what I deserve. And now I find out the one person I trusted here is just another man hiding behind money." Pain flashed across his face. "I never hid behind money here. I left it behind. She couldn't listen anymore. Grabbing her bag, Maya turned and ran. She didn't hear Arjun call her name. She didn't see the fear in his eyes as she disappeared into the night. All she felt was the familiar ache of betrayal, deeper now, sharper, because this time it came wrapped in kindness. Behind her, the unfinished building stood silent once more. But nothing inside it would ever be the same. Again, Maya didn't stop running until her lungs burned and her legs felt like they might give way. She finally slowed near a small park several streets away, collapsing onto a cold bench beneath a flickering streetlight. Her chest rose and fell unevenly as tears streamed down her face. The city moved around her. Cars passed, people laughed, life continued, but inside her, everything felt frozen. A billionaire. The word echoed in her mind like a cruel joke. All those nights, all those conversations, all those quiet moments she thought were real. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to block out the memories, but they only came faster. The way Arjun listened without judgment. The way he protected her without asking for anything in return. The way he spoke about dignity and humanity. Was any of it real? She stayed on that bench until dawn, too tired to think, too hurt to cry anymore. When the first light of morning appeared, she stood up and walked. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't go back to the unfinished building. For the next few days, Maya survived the way she always had, one step at a time. She slept near a women's shelter when there was space. She worked wherever someone would give her a chance, scrubbing floors, washing dishes, carrying boxes. Her body moved on autopilot, but her heart felt numb. Yet no matter how hard she tried, Arjun's words followed her. You were the answer. She hated herself for missing him. On the fourth day, as she was leaving a small bakery where she had earned a few coins, a familiar voice stopped her. Maya. Her spine stiffened. She turned slowly. Arjun stood a few feet away, no longer dressed like a beggar, but not in a suit either. He wore simple, clean clothes, nothing expensive, nothing flashy. He looked tired. Human. I've been looking for you, he said quietly. Her first instinct was to walk away. She forced herself to stay. What do you want? To talk, he replied. Only if you're willing. She crossed her arms, protecting herself. Talking won't change who you are. No, he agreed. But it might help you understand why I am. They stood in silence for a moment before she nodded toward an empty spot near the bakery. 5 minutes. He accepted without argument. I didn't follow you to convince you with money or promises, Arjun said. I came to apologize properly, and to tell you the truth, without hiding. She stared straight ahead. I'm listening. I grew up surrounded by luxury, he began. But I also grew up lonely. Everyone wanted something from me. When my father died, I inherited not just wealth, but expectations. I started questioning everything.
So I left.
I lived among people who had nothing, to see who they were when there was nothing to gain. And you found me, she said flatly. I found you, he said, when you had every reason to be bitter, and you chose kindness instead. She finally looked at him. Do you know how rare that is? To be treated like an equal by someone who has more power than you. He nodded. That's why I never offered you money. That's why I stayed silent. I didn't want to own your gratitude. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they didn't fall immediately. You should have trusted me with the truth. You're right, he said softly. I was afraid that if you knew, everything would change. And I was selfish. I wanted one place in my life where I wasn't Arjun Malhotra, the billionaire. She exhaled shakily. So what now? I'm not here to rescue you, he said. I don't want to be your savior. I want to be your partner, if you'll let me. On your terms. She searched his face for lies and found none, only humility. "I don't want your money," she said. A faint smile touched his lips. "I hoped you'd say that." Weeks passed. Maya accepted help, but not as charity. Arjun helped her find work through honest connections, never once revealing who he was. She earned her place. Slowly, she rebuilt her confidence. They met often, talked honestly, and for the first time in her life, Maya felt seen, not saved. One evening, Arjun took her back to the place where it all began. The unfinished building was gone. In its place stood a community center, bright, open, alive with voices. A sign near the entrance read, "For those who were never given a chance." Maya's breath caught. "This isn't for us," Arjun said. "It's for people like we were. People the world ignores." She looked at him, understanding finally settling in her heart. She reached for his hand, not because she needed him, but because she chose him. Sometimes, life strips everything away to show you what truly matters. And sometimes, the man the world calls worthless is the one who sees your worth most clearly. For Maya, losing everything didn't break her. It led her home. Life doesn't always reveal its lessons gently. Sometimes it takes everything away, your comfort, your pride, even the people you trusted, just to show you who you truly are. Maya thought she had lost her future the night she stepped into that unfinished building. She believed kindness was a weakness the world punished. But in choosing compassion when she had nothing left, she discovered a strength no betrayal could destroy. And Arjun learned something too, that wealth can build towers, but only humanity can build a home. So the next time you see someone the world has labeled as worthless, remember this story. Because the truest value of a person is never what they own, it's who they choose to be when no one is watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. More powerful stories like this are coming, stories that remind us that kindness, even in the darkest places, can change lives forever.